Hello, 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 everybody. Thank you for joining us. I mean, this is just, I'm so excited. We got a fantastic guest today. I mean, it's just about to drop it, and I'm just feeling, just got everything inside me tensed up and ready to just explode right now. So, I don't want to even wait, I mean, that's sometimes, I wait a few minutes and I bring him in, but I got to tell you, let's just go ahead and bring in my guest today. I don't know if he needs much of an introduction, but I'm just gonna. Woo! Here we go. Here we go. Boom!
What's up,
Jim
man?
Mahfood. Hey,
Yeah.
I would like to welcome you to the SKITS Fun House.
Yes.
I,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
when I had you up, before we actually went live, I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name. You
Yeah,
know?
the correct pronunciation is Mahfood, but
Okay.
everyone says Mahfood or various versions of it. It doesn't really bother me either way, but as long as it's not like, hey, jerk or idiot, so
No, no, I actually got it right. I mean, usually,
yeah.
with older people, when they were growing up reading comic books and doing stuff like that, and you start to learn about people, you read their names in comic books, you don't know how to pronounce any of this stuff. I mean, you're just going on whatever. And yours was actually one of those where I was just like, well, I think it's my food. I
Yeah,
mean, that,
you got
that's
it.
that's the way I would say it. So
That was like the
cool.
big dilemma in the 80s with me and my friends was how to pronounce Bill Sienkiewicz's last name.
Yes.
That was a
Yes.
huge thing of like, where do you even begin with this name?
I,
And
I have
eventually
no idea.
I learned the correct pronunciation. And then I met Bill and I confirmed it with
Yeah.
him. It's like it's Sienkiewicz, right? He's like, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, yeah. I was the same way for probably like 20 years. Probably, I was just like Sinkowitz. So I had no idea. So I just always said like Sinkowitz or something like that. I can't even remember how I used to say it, but then I did meet him, and I was waiting in line to have to get on his list to get some artwork done, and he had to pronounce his name to the guy in front of me, and I was like, yes.
Nice.
I don't have to say it.
That makes things easier. Did you get a commission from Bill?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I don't have it where I can grab it, but yeah, I
Sure.
got a nice I think it is Electra piece.
Oh my
So
God. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
And,
he's
the big thing about it though for me, I was just like, dude, I don't want like a pen and ink drawing. I want you to do like your style. Just go wild with it, and he was using like Conte crayons and some pencils and some Crayolas. I mean, it was cool,
yeah.
He really went all in on it, and that rocked.
The mixed media style.
Exactly. That's really something that I always liked him for. It was kind of like when he started Moon Knight, he was like any other artist at Marvel. And then when he got done with Moon Knight, he was like transformed to like,
Exactly.
so
It's funny, the
yeah.
cartoonist kayfabe guys just did a video on that. I think it actually was today, where they tracked his evolution as an artist on Moon Knight, and specifically just the covers.
Nice.
Because like the cover to issue 1, it looks like him as a traditional like Marvel kind of monthly artist, and then by the time it
Yeah.
gets to the end of his run, it's the ink splattery, like
Yeah.
crazy Ralph
Yeah.
Steadman Sienkiewicz that we know and love.
Yeah, I'm
So
definitely. I mean, that's exactly it. It's just like he went from to house artist to boom,
yep.
and and then he just went on to do some other things, New Mutants and stuff like that, where it's just like, yeah, man, this guy, he's the. I think when I first saw his art, it was on New Mutants. I was like, what the heck is this?
Mhm.
I was probably like 13 or something like that. I had no idea what I was looking at, really. You know,
Yeah. I
but
remember
it,
that was like a divisive thing at the time of is like monthly Marvel maniac type collectors were like, "What? I don't know if I like this. Like, what am I looking at here?" And I didn't understand it because I was a kid at the time, but years later you look back at certain things, and I
Yeah.
think pop culture and art works that way, like
Yeah.
music, movies, comics, like
Definitely.
sometimes you just don't understand things until you have Asian experience, and then you look back and you're like, "Oh, wow, that
Yeah.
was brilliant." I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Jack Kirby was kinda that way to me too, like, I didn't really understand his work when I started collecting in the '80s. I was like, "It's big and blocky, I don't
Yeah.
really get it," and then years later, really understanding his body of work and the depths of his imagination and brilliance, he's, like, one of my all-time favorite creators ever now, you know, it
Well, you know what it took for me to really appreciate his work is to go back into the 50s and see the stuff he was doing, like the sci-fi comics and stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. And it was completely different than what he did for Marvel. And I mean, the dude, he knew what he was doing. He was an amazing illustrator. Everything was there, everything was perfectly rendered. But then when he went to Marvel, it was just like he exploded. And also maybe the fact that he was doing like 3 or 4 books at a time, that might have had something to do with it, you know? So
Yeah,
whatever it was awesome. It was genius. And he created stuff that will be with us forever and no one can ever duplicate it, you know?
yeah. I
So
love it, man. It's so good.
yeah. Hey, before we get too far into this, let me just say hello to everyone in the chat.
Of course. Yeah.
Don't want to, go too far without saying hey to them because without them, I mean, there's no reason to really do any of these videos. So let's go ahead and say hello to them. We got Black Star. That's my wife. Thanks a lot for being here, baby. Also, check out her channel, Verse Films Productions. It's on YouTube. She does horror movie reviews.
Oh,
So that's really awesome. She's going to be having a horror comic come out sometime soon. So go on over there and subscribe to her. Get her to it. She just started out, but she's got like 50 videos up already. She's just like killing it. But go ahead and subscribe to her so she can get to 100 subscriptions. That way she can actually name her channel. So that's really important. So go on over there if you can. Also, we got K Manifesto. What's up, K Manifesto? I appreciate you for being here. We got Rick Saylor. Hey, Rick Saylor. I appreciate you for being here. One of our big backers of skits. Awesome kid and everything. And I mean, it's just nothing bad will ever be said about Rick Saylor. He's the man. We appreciate you, man. Tree Goblin. Hey, man, what's going on? Appreciate you for being here. Let's see who else, man. We got all sorts of stuff going on. People talking in here, saying hello to everybody. And yep. Everyone. Big fan of Jim. K Manifesto. Big fan of Jim. Looking forward to this exchange.
awesome.
Again,
Thank you.
yeah, K Manifesto has a channel too. They haven't been putting much up lately, but they have a really good channel. They had some really good stuff going on, where they actually manage a panel of people and they have like dialogue of questions to go back and forth. So it's actually pretty good. So go on over there and check it out, people.
Nice.
We're all over the new Moon Knight series. I know, man. That new Moon Knight series is good, man.
I
I have.
haven't checked it out yet.
Oh,
It's
you haven't?
I need
Oh,
to yeah, I'm behind on, like, TV and movie stuff and
yeah. Well, I got to tell you. Okay, so I hadn't owned a TV since I was in high school, probably, and my I just didn't watch TV. I'm not a big fan of TV. I didn't watch it when I was really young because we kind of lived in places where we couldn't get access to it. You had to get it on an antenna and you got the bunny ears and it just looked terrible. So anyway, it was just like uh but then, after 20 something years, I get married. I'm 45 now and me and my wife been married for about 2.5 years, going on 3. And she was in Hollywood for 15 years and she worked in Hollywood as an actress. So she was like, well, we got to have a TV, we got to watch TV. And I was like, okay, well, I guess so.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, she's really gotten me into watching stuff. So we've been watching the Moon Knight. I love the Moon Knight series so far. There's only 2 episodes out, but it's fantastic. I highly recommend it.
Oh, cool, okay.
Yeah.
I also lived in Hollywood for 15 years. It's a interesting weird coincidence and an interesting place to live and be a part of, you know?
Well, I mean, you can't just mention that without actually going into it a little more depth. Like, what's one of the craziest things that ever happened to you in LA? What's a good story that you could actually lay on us?
Uh, I met so many interesting people. We were at a bar one night with Jim Carrey hanging
Wow.
out because my friend's band was playing at this spot called the Cat Club, and his daughter's band was opening up for them.
Mm.
So it was like a real small little dark dive bar, and all night we kept looking over at this guy who was by himself. We were like, "That looks like a really young Jim Carrey." And he eventually was at the bar, and me and my friend started talking to him. We're like, "Do you ever get the thing that you look like Jim Carrey?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm Jim. That's me." We were like, "Wow, dude, you look great." And he's like, "Thanks, man." And he hung out all night. We chatted and whatever. And then at the end of the night, man, he helped his daughter's band move all their equipment out of the club into like the van in the alley.
Yeah,
Like he was being a good dad. He seemed like a
yeah.
cool dude. But it was just weird to be in that close of a proximity to like one of the biggest, movie stars or whatever. And
Well,
you just realize like, well, people are just people. But
exactly.
it's weird to have him. He's like, 2 feet away from me. Like this is very
Yeah,
strange. Very
yeah,
weird.
definitely. Well, since you threw out like a Hollywood type story, I gotta give you one back. When I was in college, I was at Savannah College of Art and Design,
Oh, nice, nice.
and they were filming The Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. Clint Eastwood was,
Yes. Yeah.
and uh, I was in this back alley. One of the things that we would do in Savannah is we go through the back alleys. We'd look for trash for like different classes. Like, you got like some sort of 3D sculpture you got to work on. You got, some found object piece you got to work on. So it's just like, all right, you go to the back alleys and you look for stuff. So me and my buddy were dumpster diving in this one dumpster, and it just happened to be in the alleyway behind where they were filming in some house. So we're like sitting there and we hop out of this dumpster, and all of a sudden this door opens up behind us, like off to the side out that way. And we just kind of look, it's getting kind of dark and everything. And Clint Eastwood steps out, and he's just like, he steps out, he's like, and he just kind of looks, and he looks over at us, and we're just kind of looking at him. And he like turns away from us, and he starts walking really fast, and he gets to where he's almost running. And he gets to the end of the alley, and he slips on all these rocks and about falls on his butt.
Whoa.
And we were just like, dude, wasn't that Clint Eastwood? He just ran from us. And the funny part is I would go to school, I'd go to class pretty much the same time that he was always running in the park in the afternoon.
Oh, okay.
And after a few days, he started realizing that I was the guy that he ran from. So I'd always wave to him, and he'd wave back and stuff.
Oh,
So
that's cool. Yeah,
yeah,
it's weird, like little stuff, man. Like I lived right by the Laugh Factory off Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, and I would every day I'd have like a coffee break where I'd walk down to the Coffee Bean and get my coffee, and it got to the point where I would run into Pauly Shore every day. Do you remember Pauly Shore, the Weasel? Pauly Shore.
I ran into him actually. I'm from Daytona Beach, and I ran into him during spring break
Right.
one time.
Yeah, because he used to do that like all
Yeah.
for MTV. So it got to the point where we would run into each other so often at Coffee Bean that we started saying hi to each other, and it became this thing of like I'm giving the nod and say, "Hey, what up, dude?" to Pauly like almost every day because we'd go down there at about the same time. And if he saw me and was walking in, he'd like hold the door for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, cool, thanks, dude. We didn't really chat that often, but we would acknowledge each other. It
So
was just it was just funny because I was a kid in the '80s watching
yeah,
MTV.
yeah, exactly.
The Weasel, and it's
Yeah.
just weird that I'm like I'm sort of like buddies with Pauly Shore. We're coffee buddies. We're not really
Yeah.
buddies. We're like coffee buddies, I guess.
Now I'm guessing this was probably after his big stint of fame on MTV and
Oh,
everything.
definitely,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm gonna guess that he was probably a little different character then after going
yeah.
through the big hype of fame and then kind of coming down to to a regular level. When I ran into him, he was at the height of his fame. He was
Oh,
on
wow.
Daytona Beach. He's doing his show, chilling with the Weasel or whatever the heck it was called.
Yes.
And me and my buddies we we're in the hotel, like back behind where they're doing all the MTV stuff, and we're riding the elevator down, and it stops, and he gets on the elevator with us, and we're like, hey man. And he's like, what's up, buddies? Doing his whole weasel thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious, dude? You're not on camera.
Yeah.
But
Took that
he
character
seemed fine though. I mean, he seemed like a fine, nice guy though.
I think he took that as far as you can take it.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Weasel character.
yeah. But hey, whatever. I mean, we'll always know him, or at least our generation will.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
You know. So, oh, we had a question here from K Manifesto, so I just wanted to put it up there for you. I enjoyed Skull Funk Radio. Any plans to continue?
Yes, I'm making new episodes right now. It's just I haven't done a new episode in a while just because of life and work, and I put out, and I'm currently putting out this comic book series, Girl Scouts Magic Socks, through Image,
Yes.
and doing 6 issues, writing, drawing, coloring, lettering, and editing it. Needless to say, it took over my life for like the last 2 years, and I'm super happy with it. Like it's really great. It's rewarding, but man, as you know, man, like doing your own comics, it
Yeah.
is so much work that it's kind of almost ridiculous, like how much work it is. Like people outside of the art form don't really know. I think they're like, well, you get to sit and draw every day. That must be so fun, and it is fun, but it's also like countless hours to actually make a series and put it out and deal with a publisher. And I mean, I love it. It's what I do, but it really, like, 6 issues like took over my life. And on top of that, I'm doing freelance commissions, traveling here and there, trying to maintain friendships with people, like having a normal life sort of. But it's just a ridiculous amount of work to make a comic book.
Oh yeah. It definitely. And I'm trying to share this actually while we're
There
talking.
you go. Yeah.
Let me just hide this right quick. Anyway, there's Girl Scouts. I just wanted to bring it up for people.
Thank you.
I gotta tell you, before the show, like day when I had a break here and there, I was looking for my Girl Scout comics. I know I got the first 2 issues, and I'm just like, where the heck are they, man? I got piles of comics everywhere, and I just couldn't find them. I'm like, dang it, man.
Oh, it's all right. I'm the same way, man. I have piles of stuff, and I have piles of stuff that I still need to read as well.
Oh man, I got boxes of stuff I haven't read. I mean, I'm bad, but I'll tell you the truth. To be perfectly honest with you, I collect the art more than I read the stories.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's wrong, but I don't. That's just kind of where I've been for a long time. Where it's like I see an artist, I'm like, okay, I like that art. I want to buy and support them. You
Yep.
know?
I'm the same way. I mean, there's certain things I definitely read, but yeah, for me, if the visuals don't catch me right away, I'm probably not gonna check it out. Like it's a visual medium, man, for me, where
Sure.
like I want the art to really like blow me away and be inspiring and make me want to sit and draw.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of the point for me of the medium. To
Yeah.
stay excited, you know.
So you said that you were drawing it and writing it and editing it. Now, were you coloring it as well?
Yes.
Okay, so I got a question for you. I know that your style is not what they would call a house orthodox style.
Right.
Uh, how many pages do you do a page a day? I know that's kind of like the standard in the industry is doing a page a day. Is that what you do?
Yeah, about. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely fully pencil a page in a day and then start inking it, and then I'll usually finish the inks and add I do Zipatone by hand, the gray
Wow,
scale
nice.
shading film. So I'll ink and zip a page on the second day. So yeah, I need about 2 days and I can fully pencil and ink a
Hmm.
page. But then I have to scan that and I'll add some like minimal coloring in Photoshop. So
Yeah.
about 3 pages or 3, excuse me, 3 days for a page. But again, that's me like doing everything and hand lettering it on this current series.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
how how do you edit yourself? That's something that I can't get my mind wrapped around. Maybe because I'm a bad speller and stuff like that. But I just find that it would be really difficult to edit yourself.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess by edit, what I mean is a lot of creators, when they work with image, they choose to bring in editors to like handle and coordinate the production of their book and check spelling and all that. And I'm so hands on that I'd rather just deal with image directly and look at the specs from the printer, approve all the deadline dates, make sure my designer is on time with putting the whole book together in InDesign. Um, but I don't want there to be a middleman between me and image. I want to deal with them
Yeah.
directly just so I know the day-to-day operations of what's going on with making my product.
So let me ask you this then. Is your background in design, like graphic design, that sort of stuff, or pre-press or screen printing or any of that sort of stuff?
No, it's I went to art school in Kansas City and I went through like the illustration program.
Okay.
So it's illustration first and then design and all that I just kind of picked up along the way, learning on my own
Yeah.
by default. But I do have my friend Carmen, who lives in LA. She has worked with me for the last 10 years to design most of my books, like actually put together like the credits page, the letters column. Like I feed her all the contents for all that stuff, and
Yeah.
then she's the one actually putting it together because
Okay.
she knows my aesthetic and she knows my sensibility. So I do have a partner in all this, but it's my I don't know, it's me like directing everything, I guess I would say, you know.
That's really interesting because I mean the stuff looks so seamless that it looks like you're doing everything. You know what I mean? Because it
Good.
all just looks like your style, like it's all hand illustrated almost and stuff like that. So it has a very unique feel to it.
Yeah, thank you. Those are I mean, my favorite creators are like the single visionary type creators, the guys that like
Yeah.
write, draw, letter their own stuff, like Dan Klaus with 8 Ball, or even Robert Crumb, or like the Hernandez brothers. You know, it's like you physically just make the full product. Like you
Yeah.
write, draw, and just make your own world. You make your own comics. Like it's one of the few storytelling mediums where a single person can literally do
Yeah.
every job.
Yeah, see that was one of my earliest influences was someone like that, and that's Dave McKean.
Oh, I love McKean.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like he was doing stuff kind of up and beyond what anyone else was doing. You know, like working with photography, working with graphic design, lettering, and just all this stuff, and then doing these paintings. You know, these multi-depth paintings and stuff like that, collages and sculptures, really.
Yeah,
And that was even today, and when I'm working on skits, that's the thing that really influenced me was like that type of stuff, you know.
I love that stuff.
So
Are you a Kent Williams fan as well?
oh, actually, it's funny you should mention that because I had him do a cover of skits for me.
Oh, wow. Holy cow, that's amazing, man.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Kent Williams. Actually, when I got started doing this, I told my wife, I was like, listen, it's like here's a list of all the artists that I would love to have from top to bottom. Here's the and he was number one on there. I was like, he hasn't done anything in comics for like 10, 15 years. But I love his work. So, but she went out there, emailed him, and he got back to us, and we were able to get something done. So it's all, actually, my birthday was in February, and my wife commissioned Kent Williams to do a piece of my teddy bear from my childhood.
That's amazing. That's great.
And now I keep it next to my desk here, but I got to get a frame for it so I can put it on the wall right here. But
He's so good, man. So, did you talk to Jason Sean Alexander?
yes, actually, I have. He's done a piece for us for a future book. So
Okay.
yeah.
Because so Jason's one of my best friends, and when I lived in LA, Jason had a painting studio downtown in a building right next to Kent Williams painting studio. So
Nice,
I got
yeah.
to know Kent. Like I would hang out and watch Jason make these crazy visionary paintings, and then I'd go
Ah,
next door and see Kent, the guy that he sort of apprenticed under, seeing Kent do his thing, and I was just like, "Oh man, I don't know anything about drawing or painting."
it doesn't it suck when you meet one of those people where
Like
you're just like, ugh.
I mean, yeah, very humbling. I'm like, man, I got nothing, dude. What am I gonna do with my work? Like
Yeah,
these guys are masters.
I know, man. It's something that was funny is like when I first really got into art, I was probably like sixth grade, and then I had a teacher just sat me down and was like, "Here, you need to do this." And for some reason, it just kind of drew me in. I'd never drawn before. I could care less. Okay, I was outside playing every day. I was doing baseball, football, basketball, whatever I could do to stay out of the house. I did,
Sure.
and but then when I went to junior high, there were all these kids that kind of came in from a couple of different other schools, and they were all amazing. And I was just like, wow, it's like I'm gonna have to step up my game. I'm gonna have to learn how to do this better. But having those people around you really drive you to become something better.
Yep. Yes, man. The iron sharpens iron theory of that happened to me when I went to art school. Like I was the art star of my high school, and I thought I
Yeah,
was like super cool. And then I got to art school and met these guys that were like a year or two ahead of me in the illustration program.
yeah,
And I was like, "Oh no, man, I'm not very good." Like I thought I was the man, and
yeah.
now
Same
like
thing.
I have to step up my game. But I wound up becoming friends with those guys, and like we eventually rented a big crappy house together, and just living under the same roof with artists that were better than me. It sped up my improvement, my evolution, like dramatically. Like
Yeah,
on a day-to-day basis, dude, I was getting better. And also, when you're young, like your brain is absorbing so much stuff
yeah.
so quickly that 18, 19, 20 years old, I was just like improving by leaps and bounds just by having access to these great guys that were
Yeah.
down the hall from me. If I had a question, I just go down to my buddy Mike's room, knock on the door, and be like, "Is this perspective right? Or is this, what do I do?" And he'd be like, "Oh, you need to do this, this, and this." But it was just, this was before the internet, as you know. I mean, we're kind of the same age, and we didn't have access to
No,
information.
no.
So like you literally had to do what I did and meet an artist that was better than you and kind of latch on to that guy and get the answers you needed directly from the source, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what your age is. I don't know if you want to say it, but
I just
uh,
turned 47, so I'm like 2 years.
okay, yeah. So I'm 45. When we were in school, actually, the internet for most people wouldn't even, the internet came about while we were in college. Let's
Yep.
just put it that way, And before that, it was just all word of mouth, being handed around, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's definitely really changed things. I'm not sure if it's for the best yet, to be perfect. I mean, it's definitely changed things in good ways, but there's a lot of things where is being dropped to the side that when you didn't have it, you really had to go out there and hustle and find things and learn things, and stuff like that. When I was in college, I remember I spent my Friday nights, and this shows you how cool I was hanging out with the cool kids. On Friday nights, I spent my nights at the SCAD library.
Okay.
It was just like, okay, there's all of these art magazines. They had like hundreds of art magazines that came in, monthly, and then all these new art books. I'd never seen any of this stuff. I was actually kind of sheltered when I was in high school and junior high and stuff like that. I had a traditional art background. I learned to draw, paint, and sculpt in Renaissance style painting and
Oh
drawing
wow.
and sculpture. So I was learning everything. Everything had to be rendered. You had to memorize the human form down to a T. You had to, all of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And then I went to college, and everyone was doing like this person was gluing stuff together. This person was painting over photographs. I mean, there was just all this stuff that I knew nothing about. And that's really where my mind was like, oh my gosh, what, yeah, I could render, I could do all that stuff and draw realistically and paint realistically, but I couldn't do all the cool collage type stuff. And that's really where I needed to like where everyone was teaching me cool stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was like definitely a learn by doing type process for us, I think. Now, if you're a kid, like I don't even know if I would recommend going to art school for most kids because you just get into this crazy college debt situation.
Yeah.
It's almost like do what I did, latch on to an artist in your city that you can hang out with in person, and then all your other questions will probably be answered on YouTube with like
Yeah.
YouTube tutorials. But I'm definitely a big proponent of if you can get out and actually hang out with other artists in
Yeah.
person, go through
Yeah.
their sketchbooks, see what reference material they're using, look at their library, see what tools they're using. It's just kind
Yeah.
of a big deal to be able to like absorb that in real time in real life.
There were a few artists that were around SCAD that were either in the graduate program or had already graduated, and they were like 4, 5, 6 years ahead of me. But I saw their work at art shows and stuff, and I was like, dude, this guy is really, really good, or that person's really good. So what I would do, and now I'm gonna sound kind of ridiculous, but I'd find out like either where their studio was or where they would hang out, what coffee shops they'd hang out at. And I would try and just like run into them at these places and talk to them and get to know them and stuff
Yep.
like that. Or I'd go by, I'd see like, oh, there's studios right there. I'd knock like, hey man, what's going on? I just, I heard you and I just try and spark up conversations with
Yeah.
them. But that's how you learn, that's how you find out about these people and what they're doing and stuff. So yeah, we're on the same page. That's what people need to do. They need to don't go to art college, move to a big city where there's a lot of cool artists and try and find out where they hang out, and then go
Yeah.
meet them, work on your craft, find it out online, all that sort of stuff. Don't get into $200,000 worth of debt.
Yeah, that's trouble. Um, Someone was asking about non-comic book influences.
Yeah, yeah. Let me pull that up. There we go. Boom.
Uh, and definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm like a huge fan of obviously, I mean, you can see it in my work, but like graffiti art, um, illustration, going back to guys like Bob Peak. There you go, mixtape. Nice.
Yeah, I love these books. These were I think this was some of the earliest stuff I found of yours that
Yeah.
when these books came out. Yeah, I had seen your stuff before then, but when these came out, I was like, all right, I got to start collecting this
Oh,
new
nice.
stuff. Yeah,
Cool. Thank you. Um, but yeah, just like illustrators. I mentioned Bob Peak, Ralph Steadman. Oh, Kick Drum Comics, nice.
yeah, these are great too.
What else? I love like Warhol, Basquiat, Keith Haring, that like late 70s, early 80s New
Yeah,
York
yeah,
expressionist school of guys, and like 60s era psychedelic rock poster art, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, big fan of like we mentioned, like film, animation, manga, anime, um, and speaking of Kent and Dave McKean, like those painterly illustration guys, and even fine art guys like Francis Bacon, or I would hang out in Jason Sean's studio, and he'd always be showing me like, check out this Francis Bacon book, or check out this, I don't know, Toulouse-Lautrec book,
yeah,
just unique stuff that can kind of you might not necessarily see it in my work, but it like gets the gears in motion of inspiration, and like getting you excited to try and do your own unique thing, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Eric Wapo, holy crap, 200K. Well, I graduated from SCAD in 2000, and luck by the grace of God, I was given a full paid scholarship to go there, and I didn't have to pay
Oh,
for anything. But when I did graduate, they had a tally of all the monies that they had given me over the 4 years I was there, and it ended up being close to 100K. And I know the price since I've been there has gotten close to doubling. It's got to be
yeah,
160 to 180 now. And yeah, I mean, you do that plus you add in if you're not working the money that you got to borrow for books, supplies, housing, everything in between. You're going to pay a ton of money for college.
yeah, yeah. You kind of have to know really what you're getting into if you want to go that route. It's
Definitely.
uh,
So
oh, my
what?
favorite manga.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of an obvious thing to say. It's like so not anything super underground, but I mean, I'm a huge Akira fan, a huge Katsuhiro Otomo fan. I think he's like the master, basically. So
Yeah.
I love his work, Domu, everything he's done, and currently I'm reading. I just got turned on to Chainsaw Man. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but
No, that sounds like a horror film.
oh, it's great, dude. It's this bizarre demonic thing about this kid who can manifest his head into like a chainsaw. Super violent, super over the top,
I have heard about this one. Okay, yeah.
but like really ridiculous and very much my sensibility. Like I like things that are very, exaggerated and extreme and over the top and
Yeah. Yeah.
so
That's
yeah.
that's well, I would to since we're around the same age, I would definitely think that you would probably mention those back then, Akira, Mashimu Shiro, all that
Oh,
sort of
for
stuff.
sure. Sure.
Because I mean that's what we had back then,
Yep.
and you were lucky to find it, I mean you had to be at a good comic book shop that imported it, and a lot of times it was in Japanese, before the English versions came out.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, the
So
the manga craze is still kind of like a new thing for me because like you said, man, just like 25 years ago, like you just couldn't really find the stuff.
yeah, definitely. I had this other question in here. My wife was trying to ask something, and oh, here we go. Since you're an LA person, ask Jim if he ate at Daikukaya, the ramen house with the yellow awning in Little
Oh,
Tokyo.
yes, yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
oh, that
legendary
place.
spot.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you wait an hour to get in the place, but it's well worth it.
Totally
Yeah.
worth it.
I,
Yeah,
I never I never know the names of these places. My wife remembers all that stuff because she was there for a long time. But they had the best pork belly. Oh,
yeah. Dude, I'm
yeah.
going back to LA in a couple weeks to visit friends and go to a friend's wedding, and one of my main goals is to go to, like, all my favorite food spots.
Eating place. Yeah.
Well, LA obviously has some really great spots, and,
Oh,
we would always go to Korean barbecue in Koreatown, and that
oh
was
yeah.
always, like, a ridiculous just feast of overindulgence, so
Yeah. See, for me, it was like I'd never been out of the South until I graduated from college, and I went on a road trip with a bunch of friends, and we hit Philly, New York, DC, all those places, and to me, it was like a mind blow because I'd never seen cities that big. The biggest city I ever saw was Atlanta,
oh,
and
right.
so the food was the biggest thing. Everywhere we went, it was like cheap, awesome, like food I'd never even heard of. It's
Yeah.
like where do you find a Polish restaurant? I mean, it's
Right,
like Polish restaurant. They don't have that in the South. It's like
right.
we got
Yeah,
KFC, Popeyes, chicken
McDonald's.
joints. Yeah, it's like we ain't got that
Yeah,
stuff.
Waffle House.
Yeah, well, one of the things about LA, speaking of food places, is when I went out there, it was like the thing that that people told me about. Oh, you gotta go to a soul food restaurant. Soul food. And I'm like, what's a soul food restaurant? I never heard of that before. And I mean, I remember hearing about it maybe in like some old Chopsaki flicks or something like
Right,
that.
right.
And but it was like, yeah, go soul food. So we went to. I might have went with my wife at that time. This was 2009 time period. We went to some place, maybe Roscoe's or something like
Oh,
that.
ye sure, chicken and waffles.
Yeah, chicken and waffles. And I went there and ate, and I'm like, this ain't soul food. This is just regular food like we eat in the South.
Yeah, yeah,
Why do they call it soul food? This is just
yeah.
regular food.
It's to non-Southerners, I think that's their way of, like, categorizing it so you know what you're describing to people. Like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
is" but that's just that's just normal fare for you.
Yeah, that's just what we normally eat. I was just like, okay, so it's like regular food, but it ain't cooked as well.
Right.
It's like it's
Roscoe's
not
is
like
okay, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. Roscoe's is okay, but it is slightly overrated. Like, there's other chicken spots you can go,
yeah.
and I had it, like, a year ago when I was visiting, and I was like, "It's not as good as I remember." It's kind of
Yeah.
commercial now, like, I don't know, it just
See, me and my wife were from the deep South, like northern Florida area, like
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I lived in Southern Georgia for probably about 10 years myself, and so it was like you can go to a cheap chicken shack where you get like a pretty good meal for like 3 or 4 bucks, and it was Roscoe's. I was like, I was paying like 20 bucks for
Oh, yeah.
something that I normally pay like maybe $5 for. And it tastes not as good, So I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
this ain't that great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely. Oh.
Okay, so I'm not alone. It is overrated. Okay.
Yes, it's definitely. Yeah. She's talking about the good place, the Crenshaw barbecue next to the church. Yeah, that's the place
Oh,
to go. Yeah, on Crenshaw. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it was right next to her church. I can't remember the name of the church, but it was a really good place.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's definitely the place you got to go to. Heck with Roscoe's, go to the place on Crenshaw.
The mom and pop spots. And also when I lived in LA, the best tacos and burritos I ever had were out of food trucks.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
each food truck I discovered is like owned by a different family. And so that family is cooking their own family recipe that might go back like 3 or 4 generations.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you go to a food truck and you see like a real old lady in the back, Mexican lady, like cooking the tacos, you know it's gonna be great because those recipes have been in their family for
yeah,
generations and they're not messing around. So those are like whenever people would come to LA and be like, "Where do I go for the best tacos?" I'm like, it's not even a restaurant. You just try and find the best food truck you can find somewhere in East LA or whatever, and
yep,
you're gonna get the best tacos from that truck, I think.
yeah.
You
She
know.
says the barbecue place was right next to West Angeles Church. So
Okay,
there you
cool.
go. Yeah,
So I'll be there in 2 weeks. I'll have to check it out.
perfect, man.
Thank you for the tip. That's awesome.
Yeah, cool. Something else. Oh, okay. I'm gonna kind of take us back a little bit. So what part of the country are you from
I was born
originally?
I was born in St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
My whole family's from there. I grew up there, and then I left when I was 18 to go to Kansas City. I went to the Kansas City Art Institute.
Yeah, it's a good
Uh,
school.
Decent school. I was there for 4 years, and then I met a girl, and I moved to Arizona with her. So we lived in Tempe,
Hmm.
right by ASU, and that was like '97. And then after 6 years of Arizona, I moved to LA and was there for like almost 16 years. Uh,
Nice.
and then I've been in Portland for like the last about 4 years. So it's cool to be able to move around. Like that's one of the joys of being a freelancer is I can,
Yeah,
and I'm I'm single, so it's like I can kind of pick up and just go other places if I want. So um, it's interesting to meet other artists and other people that are involved in like local scenes in whatever city I live in.
yeah,
You know,
definitely. So what got you into art?
I became an obsessed comic book fanatic when I was a little kid. I just discovered comics at like a really young age, and having comics, and then also having like the Super Friends cartoon and
Yeah.
the Batman '60s Adam West show was on TV. So like late
Yep.
'70s, early '80s, the reruns of all this stuff. It was just this idea of like superheroes and cartoons and guys in costumes and Spider-Man and Batman. It just made me completely fascinated with the medium of comics. And I started drawing really young and just never stopped drawing. Uh, Eventually, like in like 6th or 7th grade, people started telling me that I was really good at drawing. And
Hmm.
I think when people start telling you you're really good at something, because I wasn't good at sports, I wasn't good at. I tried to play music because I'm a big music fanatic as well. I couldn't really play music very well. So the drawing thing was the one thing that started getting me attention. And then that just reinforced my idea and drive to get better at this one thing, pursue this craft.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So what was the first? Do you remember the first comic you ever read?
Yeah, the first one I bought was The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. I think it was issue 7, and
Hmm.
it came out in '83. And the reason I bought it was we went and saw Raiders of the Lost Ark on the big screen.
Yeah.
So I was probably too young to see. It's like a pretty intense movie, but the movie completely blew my mind, obviously. And then a year or two later, I saw this book at the supermarket. I was with my mom at the store, and I was like, Indiana Jones, what? There's a book? And so I convinced her to buy me the issue. And then in the book, man, I saw ads for like other comic books, like Marvel, Spider-Man, this and that. And it just, a light bulb went off in my head of like, oh, there's a whole world of these comic book things. And the superheroes I'm watching on cartoons and on TV, they're in these books.
Yeah.
So and then, you know, G.I. Joe became super huge in the 80s. I started buying and collecting the G.I. Joe toys and then also the G.I. Joe comics. So it was, you know, the 80s were like a really, really good time to be, I think, into this kind of action adventure stuff. Transformers,
Yeah.
you know, Thundercats, the list goes on and on.
Yeah, He-Man, all of it, you know?
But dude, I was like a sucker for like all that stuff. I mean, my parents couldn't afford all the toys, but Christmas and birthdays, I would get whatever I could get my hands on. You know,
Sure.
it all fed into, you know, just imagination and wanting to be creative. You know, and draw my own characters, draw my own worlds, and just never stopped, man. I mean, that was kind of the key thing. I was never really, even though people said I was good, I was never really that good. I just never stopped, you know.
Well, you know, I got to tell you, there's people that are amazing at art. We've mentioned a few of them that we've actually met, you know, and stuff like that. But I think one of the hardest things to do, especially in comics, is to find or to create or to just naturally have a style that stands out on the shelf, you know? And I mean, that's definitely something that you've done. Like I said, I noticed your stuff immediately when I first started seeing it. And I was just like, okay. And I got to tell you, like, the way your stuff looks reminds me a lot of a bunch of the kids that I went to college with who were like into skateboarding, graffiti, graphic design, and video. For some reason, like those guys, the skate kids and graffiti kids, they were always interested in video, sound design, and graphic design for some reason.
Yeah, totally.
And so, I mean, is that in your background, like, you know, skateboarding and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. I was a skater. I was a wannabe graffiti writer. I was a wannabe kind of DJ. You know, wannabe kind of musician. I messed around with bass guitar in high school for a little bit with a band, but again, it was like none of these things were clicking. Like the drawing thing was really clicking, and
Yeah.
in St. Louis, where I grew up, I got lucky and I met these guys that were publishing their own comic books. They were called Artline Studios, and I met them when I was like 15 or 16, and they were 10 years older than me. They were like 25 years old, self-publishing black and white comics, and they were like, "Hey, man, if you want, you can be like our office apprentice, and like we'll teach you how to ink backgrounds, do grunt work, erase the pencils off of inked pages, like just total like ground level,
Yeah.
bottom of the barrel grunt work." But this was the first time I ever saw like 11 by 17 Bristol board and a T-square and inking tools and like a Winsor Newton ink brush. Like I didn't know about any of this stuff. So these dudes took me under their wing and at least showed me the fundamentals of how comics were made, what materials comics were made on. And then I started inking one of the guys' stuff like full blown, where we were making books together. And I started developing an inking portfolio. And my original goal was just to break into comics as an inker. So I started going to conventions in like the early 90s, trying to break in as an inker. And then eventually that wasn't panning out. So I was like, you know what? And then I got to art school and I was like, man, I'm just going to draw my own stuff, my own characters, develop my own style. I discovered Tank Girl at this time. Jamie Hewlett was like a huge influence on me. Do you have some of his stuff right there? Yeah, yeah. So, you know, and then I eventually got to draw Tank Girl, which is super weird.
Hey,
Um,
just so people know, we got this on the website for sale. This was the tank
that's
girl I
badass.
did in the last video. So,
That's badass.
oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
She's the best. I love Tank Girl.
Oh yeah, Tank Girl is awesome, man. That was one of my favorite books from that late '80s, early '90s time period.
Yeah, and you know, I mentioned like Hernandez brothers and all those guys before, but that was the same thing with Jamie Hewlett and Tank Girl. Was like I could just tell like these guys are having a blast making this material, and they're just doing what they want to do, and they're not answering to anyone, and that seems like that's the appropriate road for me to go down with my work. You know.
Nice. Yeah. So when you first broke into comics, was it in this style that you're currently doing?
No, it was a more I don't know how to describe it. It was like a simpler, more blocky, very thick outline around all the drawings. It almost looked like
Huh.
a flat, like almost like paper dowel type style, like not much
Okay.
dimension to the drawings, but very like flat front, side view kind of stuff. Like when I did the Clerks comic book with Kevin Smith in the late 90s, it was very, I don't know,
Huh.
much
I
more
I, re- I
much more
remember those books. I didn't know that you had worked on them. I'm gonna have to go back and look at them. Okay.
yeah. That was like my big break basically was working with Kevin. That's kind of like what really put my name out there. But over the years my style has kind of gotten into more of I guess I'd say hyper detailed, more psychedelic, looser line work,
Yeah.
scratchier line work, you know,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say, man, is the earlier stuff, it had a much like tighter, I think, look to it, constrained look. Even though it was stylish and kind of
Yeah.
graffiti-esque, the line work itself was very like
Rigid.
I was inking very tight and controlled, like
Yeah. Yeah.
going back over, adding line weights. And now I just ink like this. Like I just ink
Well, now you
this.
got a lot of emotion in your
Yeah.
work, you know, and I think that's something that kind of has always brought me to it was if it had graphic design and emotion at the same time, which is kind of hard to find. You know, a lot of graphic design is very stiff,
Right.
and I was just like, okay, this guy's doing something different. And I've always liked a lot of the different artists. We started off talking about, you know, it's just like he was one of those, but there's also like Sam Keith,
Love Sam.
Ashley, yeah, Ashley Wood.
I love Ash. There's a
Um,
check that out, Mike. There's a that's an Ashley Wood original painting right there.
is it?
Yeah.
I can't hardly see it. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna blow you up big. Hold on a sec. Let me see if I can see it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, it is. It's from. Is it from his World War
He did
series?
he did that live. I convinced him to paint live with us in 2007 at San Diego Comic-Con.
Nice.
He painted that live at a party where we were just doing big paintings while DJs were spinning records, and at the end of the night, he gave me the piece.
That is awesome.
So Ash is a good dude. Yeah, I love his stuff, man. He's great.
Yeah, I got some of his Spawn pages
Oh,
when
really?
when he was working on that. I mean, that was probably one of the things that kind of got me back into comics because like once I went away to college, I was just like so focused on like that. I was not paying attention to any of the art. Plus, I thought it had kind of run its course. A lot of the art going on in comics at the time,
Right.
and it was kind of looking ridiculous. But Ashley Wood actually got me back interested in stuff because I was really digging what he was doing on Spawn and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
and then later his own stuff obviously was awesome as well. So
Yeah. And you mentioned Sam Keith, and like I love his work
I
too.
know. I mean, to this day, I still think the Max is like the best comic that's ever come out of Image, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's just incredible
yeah.
work.
he left his mark, man. He's so good.
Yeah, and it's interesting, also talking about some of these guys, a lot of them came in drawing traditionally and then eventually got to where they, their styles and stuff like that. And I think that's something that is kind of missing today with artists is they're not learning the basics and the fundamentals and they just come in with straight style, you
Yeah,
know?
I've had many young artists show me work at conventions that has that problem to it, that dilemma of, and I don't want to be like the old guy, but that's like, but it's true. You have to learn academic drawing first.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to learn the foundations, you have to learn anatomy and all that. And I didn't know that going into art school. Like I was one of the young punks that was like, I just want to be stylish and
Yeah.
amazing and awesome. And I had teachers that were like, that will come later. All the pizzazz and all the ink
Yeah.
stuff you want to add to your work, that comes later. You have to learn how to draw
Yeah.
first.
I mean, all these guys could do it. I mean, Frank Miller, I mean, when he came in, he was just like run of the mill Marvel artist, And then he started going all out there, with Dark Knight and
Oh yeah.
a little bit on Daredevil and stuff like that. But I think the only person I can really think of that kind of went the other direction was Jay Lee. If
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, like when Jay Lee came in, it was just all emotion on the page. It was just lines and textures and everything else all over the place. So what was he working? He was working on that the Marvel book with the what it's not Aquaman, but the Marvel
Submariner. He did a run in Submariner.
Submariner, yeah. So
Yep.
he did Submariner, and I just remember at the time I was like, dude, this is awesome. There's so much emotion and stuff in these pages. But then, I guess he took a break and went to art college, and then when he came back, he was like really refined and everything.
Yeah, I still love his new work, but it's so much more like elegant
Yeah, it's
and
very elegant. Yeah,
and thought out now. It's gorgeous stuff. He's amazing, but part of me almost prefers the early '90s stuff because he was really heavily referencing Simon Bisley and like Bill St.
yeah,
Thomas and stuff,
yeah,
and doing all the ink splattery with the
yeah.
toothbrush. That's the kind of stuff that I love.
I know,
So
I do too. I'm
the
right
early
there.
Jay Lee stuff, man. There's a place in my heart for that stuff. I
Yeah.
love
I
it.
know it's like he only did it for this certain amount of time, and it was like he went to Image, he did Hell Shock, and then he like disappeared. And it was
Yes,
like,
true. Yeah.
yeah, and then he came back, and it was like a totally different guy. I was like, oh well, you don't get that anymore. That's the only
Yeah.
time we had it. So
He's a super nice guy. I've gotten to know him through doing conventions, and him and his wife are like really cool people.
nice.
Good
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. He seems like I've never met him, but I've seen him at a few conventions, and he seemed like he was cool. He's sitting there signing, doing whatever anyone wanted. So.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot. I can't remember meeting anyone, and I've met a lot of the big ones. That was kind of a butthead. Uh, Maybe Eric Larson. He was kind of. I don't know.
Yeah.
He said some things to me at the time. I was like, "Oh, hey, thanks." And then when I thought back, I was like, "Wait a minute, was he saying?" No, I was like, "Whatever."
Funny. Eric is a good guy. Maybe you caught him in like the wrong mood or something.
Yeah,
It's weird when you meet creators at conventions because depending on what time of day you meet them, or if they're like hungry or crabby, or they're trying to
yeah,
bathroom, or it's like an hour before the show. Like I made the mistake when I was younger of like trying to get editors to look at my portfolio like in the last 10 or 15 minutes of a show.
oh,
Like they
yeah,
don't want to do that. They want to pack up their stuff, they want to
yeah,
leave, they want to go get a drink, they want to go eat dinner. And I
yeah,
had a couple editors that I thought were totally rude when I met them years later. It's like they weren't really rude. I was just an idiot and approaching them as they were walking out the
yeah,
door to
yeah.
get them to critique my work. And they're like, flip through it. They're like, yeah, it's not what we're looking for. And but
I'll tell. uh,
you know, it's
Okay,
time.
so
It's
yeah,
time.
timing. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're telling me this. This was in the around 2010 sometime, but I was at a MegaCon in Orlando with my buddies, and Jim Valentino was there, and I ran into Jim Valentino in the bathroom, and we were the only two in there, and it was a small bathroom, so I was right next to him at the urinal, and all of a sudden I heard Mr. Valentino, and I just kind of like, and he kind of went like this, like what the heck? And this kid was trying to show him his artwork, while he was sitting there peeing at the. I was like, oh my gosh, dude! Talk about like the worst possible
yeah.
time.
You got to know when to plan your strategy.
Oh,
You got to
dude.
know. That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Oh man, I'll never forget that. I was just like, and he was like sitting there, like looking over, like I was turning this way to look, but he was right against the wall. So he had to go like all the way over like this and he's like looking at me on the way by, and I'm looking at him, and he's just like, oh my God. I'm like, dude, man.
Can I wash my hands first?
Yeah, it's like, dude, can I finish up,
Wow.
Like he was still like he was peeing, I was
Yeah.
like, dude, like, oh man, I just felt so bad for him, man.
That's hilarious. Wow.
Yeah. So I had this one little thing here. Hold on. Boom. Okay. So this is my wife. She's like, yeah, she tried to get Ashley Wood to do a skits cover, but we never got a response from him. That was one of those.
Oh, he's a hard guy to get a hold of.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed we could. The only thing we could find was like really his email on his website, and it didn't even. I don't even think that went to him. I think that went to an agent or something like that.
Probably. I mean, he's in Australia, and I think him and his wife just are running their household. He's doing his art. They have children, and he's got like his toy company as well. So I just assume that he's like super busy,
Yeah, it's just
I
one of
I
those
love what he
things.
does, though, man. I love his whole aesthetic. It's
Oh
great.
yeah, it's fantastic. There's nothing. I don't think I've seen too much stuff come from him where I was like, like that. Usually it's all like, yeah, I like that, I like that, I like that. It's one of
Yep.
those things.
Yep.
There's a few people that are like that. I think Basquiat was one of those where it's like there's nothing that came out of that guy that wasn't like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I know.
Um,
Sure energy, man. It's
yeah. And at the time when he was doing it, I mean, the art world was eating it up because they had never seen anything like that. They were just like, dude, this guy, like whatever he touches turns to gold,
oh yeah, yeah. And
So
it was also a rebellion against all the really boring modern
yeah,
formalist art that was going on at the time. Like
yeah,
you walk into a rich art gallery and there's just a 12-foot tall canvas painted white
yeah,
selling for like $50,000. Like Basquiat, Herring, all them, they were a rebellion
yeah,
against that. And they're like, no, we're actually going to paint again. We're going to draw. We're going to get
yeah,
dirty. We're going to use spray paint. We're going to, we're taking the street aesthetic, the New York thing, and putting it all together. And it was just so exciting.
yeah. It
Yeah.
really was. I mean, I would have liked to have been in New York during the '80s. That was
Oh, man, I know.
a heck of a time, man.
Yeah.
And I will say this too, like when it comes to the galleries in New York, when I first went there. Okay, so I'll tell you a quick story, and then we'll have to wrap this up because we're at an hour.
Sure.
But my first time in New York, I had graduated from college in like around spring break, and then we all went on that road trip that I told you about, and I had a art show going on in New York City at the time, but I couldn't go to it because I was in school.
Oh,
Okay.
right, right.
And it was on it was the Broome Street Gallery is what it was. And we went in, like this is like the reception was on a Friday, and we didn't get there until like a Tuesday or something like that, because we drove up, road trip, all that. And so we walk in, we're just like kids off the street, we just graduated from college, we look, most of the friends are like skater kids and stuff like that. So we walk in, and the lady's like, can we help you?
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the guys, he was like, oh yeah, this is the artist right here. And she's like, you know, she was like, "Oh, I'm the artist, blah blah blah," you know,
Yeah.
yeah, and this was my first experience with the whole gallery scene, you know, the real gallery
Oh,
scene.
sure.
So, you know, when we walked in, they were looking us up and down, like, what the heck are you kids doing here? You know, and then like, oh yeah, this is the artist. That's like, oh my God, you're amazing, you know. And
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely something weird, and that had happened to me a few times because she was like, "Oh, there's another art reception tonight. You need to go to it. They were here. They really liked your stuff." And then I went to that one. Same thing. We walk in. Everyone's in suits. It was like on
Yep.
57,
Yep.
and I was just like, "Man, what the heck are we doing here?" And the lady, they had a person at the door stop us and say, "What are you doing here? Can we help you?" You know, and they were like, "Oh, I'm
We
so yeah, yeah." I was told to come, and they were like, "Stay here, we'll get somebody." And then like the lady came over, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're that artist! Let me." And then they walk you around the room. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on? This is crazy."
Yeah. Gallery scene, man, is a whole other art scene. That's
Yeah,
a whole other bag of tricks. Comics is its own thing, animation's its own thing,
yeah.
advertising. I've worked kind of freelance in all different fields, but they're all like definitely different from each other.
Yeah,
You
the art scene, the gallery scene in New York, that was the weirdest thing I've ever dealt with.
I'm
Um,
sure.
yeah, that was I guess 96. No, that was 2000, 2000.
Okay.
So yeah, it was right before 9/11, you know, like a year before 9/11. And yeah, it
Right.
was yeah, I still missed out on going up on the Twin Towers. We were there and I was like, "Yeah, let's go up on the Twin Towers." Like, "Ah, we'll get it next time," you know. It's like
Were you at the Savannah School in the late 90s then? You
Yeah,
finished.
yeah. It was 96 through 2000 I was there.
Okay. I'm trying to think, I had some buddies go through there, but I think Sean Crystal. Do you know Sean Crystal?
I
I think
don't
I
think
think
so.
I think he was after that, but I do know some guys working in comics that came out of that school,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
There's about 10 guys living there in Portland somewhere that
Right.
went to SCAD, so, you know,
Have to
I don't
track
know.
dudes down, man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I gotta tell you, man, this has been awesome. The hour kinda flew by on
It
us.
completely flew by. Yeah,
I
we'll have to
know.
do it again or,
Yeah,
whatever.
definitely. We will, man. Before we get going though, tell everybody about your book and why they should go buy it.
Yes, yes. So the first 5 issues of, Girl Scouts Stone Ghost are in comic shops right now, published by Image Comics. Issue 6 drops on the 20th of this month. If you like something different, unique, and original that stands out from the regular kind of predictable stuff on the comic shelf, this book is for you. It's got humor, action, adventure, strange psychedelic things, love, a little romance, um, violence, and basically everything that I find fun with comics. I kind of pack into my own work, and it's just the vision of one singular creator. So something different. My fans that have been following my work are really into this new series. They're saying it's one of the best comic things I've done so far. So that's very rewarding to
That's awesome.
hear. I put a ton of work into this and it's been an absolute blast. And we're wrapping it up, like I said, on the 20th of this month. But your local comic shop should have um, these issues. If not, check out online. They're available digitally through the Image Comics website. And also, if you guys want to check out my work, I'm Jim Mahfood on Instagram. All my social media handles are just my name, and my website is jimmahfood.com. So if you want to check out my day-to-day adventures, I post basically every day on Instagram, and you can go to my site if you want to buy mini comics or merch. Um, and that's about it. I think that's about it.
Yeah, definitely if you're into artwork that stands out, that's got emotion, that's got a different vibe and bounce to it, go check out his work. It's something that I've been looking into. I gotta say, I first saw your stuff maybe 2008, 9, sometime around there,
Nice.
and and it definitely jumped off the shelf to me. It was one of those where it's like, okay, this stuff is cool. I gotta buy this. This is, you know, right up my alley. And
Thanks, man.
but yeah, no problem, man. It was great having you. Go check out his stuff. I would definitely say, you know, buy everything you can of his. If you can find some of his old art books too, definitely get those. I really like this mixtape series right here. It has some of your paintings, you know, on
Yep.
canvas and different stuff like that. I mean,
I love
this,
the printing of those books, man. Those were printed like so beautifully overseas, and they were very expensive to print. But Image Comics was like, you might not make money on these because they're so expensive to print. But for me, I didn't care. I was like, I just want the book to exist. Like, I just want my work to be formatted in that size and on that kind of paper. So it was worth it to me because you can put it on your bookshelf forever.
definitely, oh, excuse me. It was definitely one of those things where I was just like, dude, this is awesome. This is the type of stuff that I want to see in comics. I mean, myself, this is something that I actually wanted to get into and talking with you, but we'll just have to save it for next time.
Sure.
But artwork, comics, it's like, how do we get this stuff to more people, and maybe who aren't into comics, or, you know, what are the different formats where we can start pushing this out to people? You know, I mean, there's obviously you can sell your paintings, there's the fine art scene, there's the gallery scene. There's so many different ways to get artwork out there, and that's something that I feel like we need to start doing more into the culture to get people interested in comics again. Is like show them that there's other ways of interacting with this stuff, not just comics, but let's bring them into it through that medium.
That's
But
a big question. That's a big.
it's huge.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I
Well, anyway, I'll just leave you with that, and maybe we can look into that at a later date, because it's definitely something that we'll have to chew on for a long period of time to get people interested in this stuff again.
definitely, man. Good talking to you.
It was great talking to you. Thank you so much. Just hold on for a second and let me play us out. All right. And everyone in the chat, thank you so much for being here. I love all of you. We'll definitely do it again. We'll see you again. So thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time, guys and girls.